Hello and welcome back to the UiPath RPA Developer Training. In the previous lessons, we learned what selectors are, how they're generated, and when they might require fine-tuning to work effectively. Today, we'll explore some of the most common ways to repair selectors in order to make sure that the correct UI elements are identified in as many automation scenarios as possible. Let's open Studio and create a new project. First, let's copy the resources folder, which contains 3 text documents, to our project folder. In this scenario, we'll create a workflow that removes the double spaces in a Notepad document using UI interaction activities, which generate selectors, as we already know. Afterwards, we'll fine-tune the selectors that identify the application in such a way as to make our workflow applicable to multiple Notepad files. We'll use the files in the resources folder. Let's add a sequence to the Designer panel, rename it, and add an annotation. Next, we'll add an Attach Window activity. We'll also change the name of the activity to follow the best practices and indicate our Notepad file. Now, to remove the double spaces in the text file, we'll use the Replace command, whose shortcut is Ctrl+H. We can automate this action in Studio by using the Send hotkey activity. For the next step, the robot must fill in the fields in the Replace pop-up window. So we'll add 2 Type Into activities. Since we need to find all of the double spaces, the string that we'll enter in the Find What field consists of 2 spaces, which must be placed between quotation marks. The second Type Into activity will instruct our robot to enter a single space in the Replace With field. And now, we can move on to a click activity to select the Replace All button. After performing these steps, we can close the pop-up window using one more click activity. Let's save the workflow and run the project to see how the execution goes. Alright, it works. But what if we want to remove the double spaces in a different file? Well, let's try that out. We'll simply close this file and open a different one and run the workflow again. This time, the UI element corresponding to the selector was not found. Let's take a closer look at the selectors to see what's wrong and try to repair them. We can notice that the title attribute contains the name of the previous file. Let's click the Repair button and select the new Notepad file. If we look at the selector now, we can see that the first 2 characters in the title were replaced by an asterisk. This illustrates the use of selectors with wildcards. An asterisk replaces 0 or multiple characters, while a question mark replaces precisely 1 character. Let's run the project again. It executed successfully this time. Now let's see what happens when we open the third file, which has an entirely different timestamp in the name. The title of the previous 2 files were similar, and the selector wildcard only replaced the 2 characters that differed from one file to the other. As a result, the value of the selector attribute still contains a part of the file timestamp. Let's open the Selector Editor menu to make some adjustments. Instead of clicking Repair, as we did before, we can edit the attribute manually. In this case, we can remove the timestamp altogether, thus replacing this entire part of the file name with the asterisk. The selector is valid. So let's click OK and run the workflow. And it worked. That's all for this lesson. Let's quickly go through the key takeaways. When working with a series of files or pages, selectors may need to be fine-tuned to apply each individual item in the series. Using wildcards is a great way to achieve this. You can add wildcards automatically by clicking Repair, or manually by editing the selector. The available wildcards are the asterisk and the question mark. An asterisk replaces 0 or multiple characters, while a question mark replaces precisely 1. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.